So let's go ahead. So good evening and welcome to the Templeton Community Service District's Board of Directors meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. May we have a roll call, please?
Director Spardonish.
Here.
Gardini. Gardini is absent. Logan
Here.
Pearson. Director Pearson is absent, and Peterson. And Director Peterson is absent.
Okay. With that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The board did meet in closed session on April 18th, 2023. And there were no reportable actions taken at that time. So we'll move on to special reports. We have Mander Stewart from CHP. Welcome.
Ma'am. Pleasure to be with you.
Is it really? I seem to be the thorn in your side.
Everything's fine for a small group. This is the report for the Templeton CHP office for the period of May 1st. Actually, this would be March 1st through April 30th for areas in and around the community of Templeton. There were 40 crashes investigated in total. 33 of those occurred up on Freeway 7 on county roads. That breaks down to 32 property damage only collisions, 28 on the freeway, 4 on county roads, and 8 injury collisions, 5 of those on the freeway, 3 of those on county roads. Collisions as a whole are down 13% for the period over last year, same period. DUI involved collisions, there were 4 for the period, 3 on the freeway, 1 on county roads. That's off 33% from the same period the prior year. And there were no fatal collisions for the period in those areas. There were 535 enforcement contacts during the period in and around the Templeton area. That's up from 430, an increase of 24% the prior year for the same period. Throughout our jurisdiction, there were 2,352 enforcement contacts for the period. That's up from 1,848 prior period. 353 citations were issued in and around Templeton, an increase of 22% over the prior year. 177 of those were for maximum speed or speed limit. 175 of those on the freeway, 2 on county roads. That's an increase of 39% over the prior year. There were 1,104 maximum speed violations throughout our jurisdiction, almost double the prior year. There was 1 citation issued in and around the Templeton area, that up on the freeway for speed in excess of 100 miles per hour, on par with the prior year. And for the entirety of our jurisdiction, that backed off 1 to 30 prior year. There were 7, we'll make that 10 DUI arrests in and around Templeton, 7 on the freeway, 3 on the county roads or community roads. That's 10 for the period, an increase of 1 over the prior year. Just for your information, there were 495 public services performed during the period for the entirety of the jurisdiction. That's up from 463 the prior year. That's our report.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from board members? Okay. Any questions from the public in the audience? I see no. Any questions from members of the public on the phone? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think we'll let the record reflect that we do have now a quorum. Director Pearson and Director Giardini are now present. We'll move to the next item of business, the order of business. We only have 1 item on the agenda, so I think we're good there. Public comment. Well, let me ask John McDonald. That's not sheriff, is it?
No, he's attending for the singular.
See,
AT&T.
okay, I just thought I'd check before I move on too far. Public comments, members of the public may address the board on any item of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction on the board. That's not on tonight's agenda. In compliance with the Brown Act, the board cannot discuss or act on items not on the agenda. However, board members or staff members may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by the public. Additionally, on their own initiative or in response to questions posed by the public, a board or staff member may ask a question for clarification. Further, the board may request staff to report back to this body at a subsequent meeting concerning any matter or to take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. So with that, I will open it up to members of the public if you would like to address the board at this time. Okay. And anyone on the phone wishing to, other than the agenda item, wish to address the board at this time? Okay, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. There are 4 items on this evening, or actually 5 items on this evening's consent agenda. The first being the minutes. The board is to consider the minutes of the regular meeting of April 18th, 2023. The treasurer's report for the period ending March of 2023. Resolution number 07-2023, the weed abatement. The board will consider adopting that resolution, declaring weeds and debris to be a public nuisance. Item D, resolution number 08-2023, an update to the investment policy. The board will consider adopting this resolution, updating the investment policy. And the last item on the consent agenda is the award of the 3-year weed abatement contract. And the board will consider authorizing the general manager to enter into a 3-year contract with Hanson Brothers Custom Farming for weed abatement. Would any board member wish to pull any of the items from the consent agenda?
Yes, I would like to pull item A and item D since I was not present at the last board meeting. I'm not comfortable voting on those 2 items.
To be abstained. Okay. Thank you. Any other item? Okay.
I guess I have a question on item C, weed abatement. How could Templeton Community Services District be on there?
We have parcels that are still out of compliance.
We do,
We do.
and we haven't taken care of it.
Well, we're still in the process of mowing. We've had some,
So we're gonna get fined?
no.
We're just not sending a good sample.
No, but we just hold ourselves to the same standard, and I've asked that if we have a parcel that's not cut to the fire chief standard to also indicate it, and we would have the opportunity, I suppose, at your next, when you, if this is approved, there'll be a public hearing in June, and we could take the same plea as any other property owner.
All right, thank you, that's all.
Okay. Any members of the public have any questions or comments regarding the items on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing and seeing none.
I guess
Okay,
I'll
go
make
ahead.
a motion to approve consent agenda items A, right? Because
A and B.
Yeah, A and B, and well, C is okay as well, so.
Well, I think we'll need to vote on them separately.
Oh, okay.
I think it needs to be B, C, and D.
Okay, B, okay, all right, let's do, so you wanted to, you don't wanna, okay, so B, C, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve B, C, and
B, C, D, and E.
Not D.
no, not D, she
Just
wanted.
B, C, and B, C, and E.
B,
Why
C,
not?
and E. She
Okay.
wanted, yeah, she doesn't.
I'm not comfortable voting on D because I wasn't here for the discussion on it.
On which one?
D,
The
D.
treasurer's.
Oh,
the
okay.
investment policy.
the investment policy.
All right, so so you've got the motion. I'll second that motion and do a roll call, please.
Directors Fardonish,
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Giardini,
Yes.
Pearson,
Aye.
and Peterson is absent.
Okay, so can we have a motion now on that leaves what, A, the minutes?
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the A minutes and D the resolution number 8, 2023.
Okay, I'll second that motion. We have a roll call, please.
Directors Ardonish.
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Jardini,
Abstain.
Pearson. Aye. And Peterson is absent.
Okay, so those, that consent agenda, those items pass. Now moving on to the next item, which is these new singular wireless AT&T cell site lease. I live within 500 feet of this cell site, so I need to abstain from the discussion and the vote. So I will step into the next room, and when you're all done, we'll call me. All right, that I'll leave you.
Yes, thank you much. Well, by way of background, the district has held a lease or has a lease with AT&T or its subsidiary for more than 20 years on the cell site. We have 3 current leaseholders at that location. This is the water tank site on top of Lincoln Hill. AT&T, I'll refer to them as AT&T, but I realize it's singular wireless / AT&T. Their current equipment is in an enclosure along the south side of the property. Those enclosures are like a concrete shed, like a tilt-up concrete shed. And their antennas, the cell antennas, are mounted atop the larger of the 3 water tanks on the site. About 9 years ago, AT&T approached the district about upgrading the cellular antennas on the water tank site to newer technology. The district had AT&T do an evaluation on the structure of the tank. It was determined at that time, this goes back a while, about 9 years, that the tank was couldn't withstand any greater loads on the top of the tank. And so we rejected their proposal to increase the loading or the size of the antenna on top of the water tank. Since then, we've evaluated several opportunities to allow AT&T to put up this newer type of technology on the site, including erecting their own separate tower, erecting 3 towers around the perimeter of the tank. Again, several options were explored over the years by various representatives for AT&T. And about 4 or 5 years ago, AT&T decided that their preferred course of action would be to co-locate on the vertical bridge tower. It's the most recent piece of equipment tower that's added to the site. We kind of refer to it as a mono-euc. It's a cellular tower that looks like a eucalyptus tree. And T-Mobile's equipment are on that tower today. At that time, again, 4 or 5 years ago, we prepared and provided AT&T a lease document that looks largely like the version that's before you tonight. AT&T, this is sort of a slow moving process, and sometimes months or even years would go by without really hearing much feedback. They had requested a number of changes to the lease. Our legal counsel was fairly rigid and recommended not accepting those changes. Ultimately, AT&T's representation for the lease changed a couple of times, and last fall they sort of circled around and said, hey, we need to move this forward, and we'll agree largely to the terms of your lease. And so over the past couple of months, we've been able to finalize the lease document. We've had to clarify a couple of things. One, that the current lease, the lease that's already in place today, will remain in effect until they've, even if this new lease is approved, will remain in effect until such time as they've removed all of their existing equipment out of the existing enclosure and off the top of the water tank, including restoring. There'll be some restoration that's required on top of the water tank at AT&T's expense, and they've agreed to that provision. This can move. It might move slowly. I don't know how long the 2 leases would remain in effect. Should the district approve the new lease, it'll essentially keep the same, almost the same amount of money coming into the district. There would be a one-time $10,000 payment for the efforts of constructing or developing the new lease agreement. And then for a period of time, however long it takes AT&T to put the new equipment up and then remove their existing equipment, they'd be paying essentially two leaseholds on the site. All of these funds benefit the water fund. Essentially, they, to some small degree, make water more affordable for our customers in Templeton. The lease agreement was prepared by Josh Horowitz of BKS using what BKS terms as their standard lease form for BKS clients, of which we are one. BKS has represented the district on cell site leases for about 25 years on that site. There is another advantage of this entering into this new lease, and that is the water tank itself. Getting that equipment off there will be of some benefit. It's hard for me to put that in dollars and cents, but we do know that the equipment on top is at or maybe a little exceeding the capacity of the tank. In other words, they weren't engineered necessarily to hold a bunch of stuff on top, but the district did so as an out of convenience and as a way to create some revenue. At one point, we had antenna on all the water tank. Right now, this is the only one that's left. I'm happy to answer questions that you may have about the lease itself. There were a couple of questions that came in from Board Member Pearson, who we were able to get some responses to yesterday and gave that back out to the board. Additionally, John McDonald from the Yukon Group, who's been the agent for AT&T since maybe last summer, so sometime last year, is on the Zoom call and can answer questions from AT&T's perspective if you have them. Otherwise, if there are no questions, it's our recommendation that you provide authority to enter into to execute the lease. And again, because we have this kind of unusual arrangement where we're short one board member, and actually both those board members have conflicts of interest because they own property within 500 feet. So it would require the approval of the 3 other board members that are here in order to execute this.
I have a question. You said basically the payment was staying the same, the $10,000. Those cell sites are in high demand. Why didn't we ask for more money or put it out for other cells to see if other people wanted that site?
So the lease, the $10,000 is a one-time payment for the lease.
Right.
The payment is $1,800 and starts out $1,800 and some dollars a month. It's about $60 more than we're getting today, and it goes up by 3 to 5%. It's a floor of 3 and a ceiling of 5, depending on the CPI each year. It's a little bit better of a revenue generator than the existing lease, because the existing lease goes up 15% every 5 years, and then that doesn't go up during the 5-year term. So this could go up as much as 25% every 5 years and would rise each year by the CPI, by 3%, the CPI to a max of 5%. We are in the process of working with another cell vendor or another cellular service provider to also locate on that site. We're not limited to just 3. At one point there were 5, but with the loss of some of the carriers, like Nextel, it was eaten up by another carrier there. They terminated their lease. Sprint was on the site at one point in time. They still have a lease payment of because it's owned by a private firm, but they're no longer active. But we do anticipate another cellular carrier potentially joining the site in the future. We've been working with them for probably 2 to 3 years.
That's not quite an answer.
So
I mean, it's sort of an answer in that it's better than it was, but I think the cell sites are in pretty high demand. I'm not gonna ask you to go back and renegotiate, but I just think we could have asked for more money. Sorry, John McDonald. But anyway, the other thing was, I know that there are questions submitted. Unfortunately, I can't find them, but there was some corrections and your answers to the corrections. And the one that really bothered me is that it should be called the utility easement, because there's all sorts of easements. And the word utility should be put in there. because otherwise it's open-ended as to what that easement is for. And if you ever end up in court, then it strictly states what it's for. Adding that one word definitely benefits TCSD. There's no drawback to it. So I don't know why it's not in there.
Under section 9.1.
9.1. Yeah, actually, there weren't any changes to the lease that Josh Horowitz developed in responding to those questions. We would have on our files a copy of the district's approved plans. So in this case, 18.
Those were included in our packet too. Yeah. Okay. Wording. I mean, it seems really simple to add the word utility easement. in there. What's the benefit of not putting it in there?
I don't know. I mean, it's not it's our document, but it was drafted by Josh Horowitz, and I'd have to ask him specifically if we should modify this to include. And then we'd also have to get AT&T to approve any of that, any additional language. But you're right, it does talk about obtain separate utility services.
Well, because in his response, he does assert utility easement, but in the contract itself, it just says easement, so.
It's grant of easement over access through the property that might be required by servicing utility.
So I guess that's the disconnect, is that in his explanation, he is referring to
Yeah, the utility easement.
Yeah. And in the way that it's written, essentially, it kind of grants a undescriptive.
Well, it doesn't grant, it says, it says including a grant of easement, right? The district agrees to sign such documents as required, including a grant of easement. So we would still have an opportunity to review that easement language if it were requested.
I just, for purposes of further protecting the district, I don't know, just being a little bit more
Specific.
detailed in what that easement is, so to avoid maybe down the road of any type of dispute or confusion.
I mean, the other thing you have to look at is who knows what the future will hold, and it may switch to some other new technology that we wouldn't want up there. And if it's just an easement they have for a non-disclosed specific purpose, then they could potentially use it for something else. Who knows? I mean, I never thought in my lifetime I would be carrying a computer around on my iPhone, right? And so who knows in the future what those easements are going to be used for? And so I think it's a way of protecting us. And, you know, if Josh charges us more than $5 for putting that word.
No, I don't somehow charge better, so I suppose you have the option of approving it only if AT&T adds the word, is agreeable to adding the word, the utility in front of it. Which I think we're talking about the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th line down, grant of utility easement.
Right.
Adding that word in there, then the board's approval can be conditioned upon AT&T agreeing to that language as well. And I would ensure that there was no downside to adding the term, and don't think so. His response was clear that it was intended to be a utility easement, so I don't think it's a problem. But I don't have AT&T hasn't executed a document that says utility easement.
Also, that last line, any easement necessary for such power or other utilities shall be granted by the district.
At no cost to VC, yeah. And so they could change that. I mean, I deal in easements all the time.
Utility, it's the same term, utility.
Yeah, just add utility next to easement when we're in section 9.1, when we're referencing easement.
No, if I have. Lude, what were your other questions?
In regards to his response, section 18. The way that it's written, the very last line, be terminate this agreement by given written notice of termination to district. I know that he had explained that section 13 would still be applicable. But is there a way to maybe tie that into the language of section 18? Because right now, the way it reads to me, you know, to a normal person is basically they can terminate with notice. But is technically the way I interpreted his interpretation was that the termination is still contingent to the requirements of section 13.
So the question was really concerning whether or not there was a catastrophic loss at the site, right? And his response was that in the event of a catastrophic loss, there's an out for AT&T to terminate.
Right. Still contingent on section 13 termination requirements. That was
By
his-
removing the equipment, et cetera.
So my question was basically, are there fees associating if they choose to execute option B under section 18?
Yeah.
And the response was yes, based on section 13, but that's not
There's
necessary.
no fee in 13. There's just there's a
Obligated to
bond,
pay
the
out.
obligation to remove equipment from the site.
Well, there's obligation to pay out the remainder of the lease agreement. That's what his response. So AT&T is obligated under section 13 to pay rent through the date of any termination, including after a casualty event addressed in section 18. So I guess my concern is the way that section 18 is written, that's not necessarily implied that they still are required to pay out the remainder of the lease agreement.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't read his response saying that the lease requires them to pay the rest of the lease term. They would be required to pay rent until they've satisfied the termination requirements, including removal of all the equipment from the site.
Through the date of any termination, including after a casualty event addressed in section 18. That was his response. So I asked, are there any fees associated with exercising the option to terminate the agreement under section 18? His response, AT&T is obligated under section 13 to pay rent through the date of any termination, including after a casualty event addressed in section 18.
So are you thinking this means like 4 years? So right now, this is a 5-year term initially. Let's say they they construct the facilities, and in day 2, there's a casualty, a loss for some reason. Lightning strikes it, I don't know what it would be, but something catastrophic occurs that they would be obligated to pay rent through the 5-year term?
No, I was just asking, so the way I'm reading section B is terminate this agreement by giving written notice of termination to the district. But there's not really any indication that there are also fees to be included in that termination notice.
Yeah, I don't think there are fees to be included. I mean,
His response is there would be fees up until the date of the termination. So
Right,
even in
right.
those 2 days, they would be obligated to pay for those 2 days.
Sure.
Including the movement of the equipment.
agreed.
And so that's why I was a little
Okay.
confused as to whether, the way that it's written, it just kind of implies that they give written notice of termination and.
They'd still be obligated to remove, they pay until, just like the current lease, they're gonna pay rent until their equipment's removed from the property and.
You know that,
Yeah,
I know that, legal counsel knows that,
And the
but
current agreement is gonna become obsolete when this goes in place, so we have.
Well, only after they've removed the.
Right.
so I guess I'm just being new to this world and reading this, it just kind of doesn't seem to imply that they have to pay anything to terminate in case of a catastrophic. It's kind of like, if lightning strikes and they're out of their lease, we're kind of left to deal with.
Well, right, so,
It's a
They-
little vague, I guess, is my,
okay, so they have to clear the site in order to affect the termination. In order to
so
permit it.
language like that, why isn't that in section B of that option to execute that option?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't write the document, so.
Jeff, come on.
Right, but it went before our legal counsel.
They wrote it, right, it's their document, yeah.
Right, and he didn't. give
It's their
us-
document, but we're the client, so
Right.
we do have a say in essentially
Sure.
the language of the document.
Sure. you
I
can-
understand
you
it's
don't
their
have to-
template and I understand
Right.
they've done this for decades and they are confident in their document and I can appreciate that, but it also has to be tailored to our
Yes.
specific needs in our community, and I mean, it has to hold its own weight. We can't have a 3-paragraph explanation of what was intended by this section B. And so I'm, just reading it from an outside perspective, written notice subject to fees or subject to.
So I mean, it's saying that, so see section 5.2, so which says AT&T must timely remove its equipment and it's at its expense, or TCSD may demand the fee of $30,000.
But so we're pulling from different sections, but section 18 standing alone doesn't pull.
Doesn't refer back to the other sections.
So section
Does that have
13,
to?
it would read clearer if it did.
Case, I mean, that's why lawsuits happen, because contracts aren't clear.
Is it I don't know if it'd be helpful if I chimed in at all, Jeff?
Go right ahead.
So the way my understanding is that the end of section 13, it's after 13.6, would apply to any termination for the lease. So regardless of whether they terminate for one of the reasons in 13, or they terminate for the reason of 18 for some sort of catastrophic event, that clause would apply to any such termination.
Would there be any issue to adding section 18, subject to the requirements of section 13?
No, that wouldn't be an issue.
Just add 3 more words to option B.
Mhm.
And I think that would clarify any confusion. We're not rewriting the agreement, we're just kind of tying it all together a little bit better.
Subject to adherence to section 18, section 13,
Yeah,
13, subject, yeah.
subject to adherence
in
to section 13
Section 5,
of this agreement.
not section 5.
Oh, in section 18, I think we're at, just it's recommended to simply add a phrase
Right.
at the end. Subject to the adherence of section 13 of this agreement. Or something materially to that effect.
and in regards to my other question, I mean, that's the advice of counsel, so we can take it or leave it. I'm gonna leave that one alone.
The arbitration and.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's just so it sounds like there's interest in adding or willingness to consider the lease by the board. If we clarify under section 9.1, both places where easement is referenced, that utility be placed before easement, and under section 18 at the end, subject to adherence of section 13 of this agreement.
Subject to adhering to section 13.
Adhering to. Okay, got it. And it sounds, John, are either of those problematic for AT&T based on what you've heard tonight?
No, I should be able to get this through legal just fine.
Yes, public input.
Sure. Sorry, yeah, we're missing your report, so yes, before you consider the agreement, you should ask for public comments.
Who steps in when president
Well-
and vice president are?
We could draw straws, or we could do something more formal if necessary, but any member of the board could ask for public.
Public input?
None.
Okay, all right.
Is there any, does Joe have any public input since he's on?
He can, yeah, he can answer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
All right.
okay. So do you need a motion now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we. That we accept the contract with the two amendments to section 18 and section 9. Is that correct?
9.1. I'll second.
All right, Directors Jardini,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
Bardonish.
Aye.
and Logan is abstaining, and Peterson is absent.
Super, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
You're at a complete loss without you, Deborah.
Thank you for that.
You asked for public comment.
All right, so we'll move now to the general manager's report.
Oh, sure, thank you much. Just a few items. One, I just wanted to alert the board that we do have a Parks, Recreation and Refuse Committee meeting next Wednesday. So you're still confirmed to attend? Yes. Okay, well then, thank you for answering in the affirmative. It's a very long agenda. It's not yet been posted, but we're working on it. And then there's a Facilities Committee meeting next Thursday. Probably not as long, but significantly meaningful topics. The Memorial Day, it's a week from Monday. District office will be closed for that holiday. No surprise. And your next board meeting on June 6th, we've calendared a budget review workshop beginning at 4:30 p.m. Hoping that still works for everybody. Anyways, just letting you know now, the board's taken a couple hours to review the budget in the past years. So then we still have a regular meeting at 7 p.m.
And the finance committee has already reviewed it.
It did Friday. Yes.
Anything else?
No, those are all the copies of that.
Any questions from the board?
I do have a question, and I apologize for being absent for the last 2 meetings. Like, on the days you guys canceled the hearings, I was available, and then on the days you had the hearings, I was at the city of Paso. So, but anyway, just going back a little bit on the easement across the Salinas River with the Finleys. I came in late on that hearing. Who did the riparian wetland delineation on that? What company?
So that item hasn't come before the board outside of closed session.
Oh, oops. Okay, never mind.
Okay, any
So-
other questions for the general manager? Okay, members of the public, any questions for the general manager? Okay, seeing none. Committee reports, there is a summary of the Water Resource Advisory Committee meeting from May 3rd in your packet. There's also, are there any other committee updates?
I have a
Yes.
question on.
Sure.
On the water resource, I'm just wondering, I read through this, where are they thinking about putting the desalination project?
That project is in its infancy. It's like a 20-year project. And right now, they're only just kind of scoping out the parameters, so they don't even have a location. They don't even have a determination whether or not they'll do a desal.
Okay.
So it's really too soon for that. So
Okay,
any other comments or questions?
I have a question on the engineering report. Sorry, I keep clicking out of the. Basically. So in here. The request for riparian water agency agreements. What is our procedure? Do we do the chain of title research or does the applicant do?
So we requested the applicant to obtain the chain of title and then we review the contents to confirm that the riparian rights were not severed, or our legal counsel has done that review. Sometimes the property owner has sort of done a preliminary review. It's not a it's not a simple service. In other words, it's not as simple as getting like a preliminary title report.
Oh, I'm familiar with that because I am doing a chain of title research. Actually, I'm not. The title companies won't do them anymore.
That's what we've heard from at least First American.
Yeah, no, because they're too impacted, Questa and the other ones. And so like for my chain of title to see if land had been split, sold separately before I have to go to a private attorney. So I didn't know if TCSD was aware of that and what our procedure was because the title companies aren't providing them anymore. And so,
All title companies or just,
well, the one, I mean, I work with Questa First American mostly. I don't know about the other ones. And so, but it is a problem mainly because they're so inundated because of workload, everybody's inundated. And they take so much time to do title research. I mean, it's a chain of title, which is a pain. And so I know like I'm hiring an outside attorney to do it.
So, and we've had our legal counsel review it when it's been provided. I don't know the resolution in this case. I did hear from one of the parties that they're having difficulty getting First American to do it. And I think the last I heard, we were trying to figure out if we could find another title company who could do the work, would have made contact with it. But yeah, it's a time consuming and not simple over the counter kind of service. Can take quite a bit of time to get obtained.
So why wouldn't you accept it from an attorney?
Well, our attorney would review that, would probably review that work. I don't know that we wouldn't. I don't know. Our code, or we have we would review we have a code. In the water code, we have a specific chapter on what's required to obtain a riparian agreement. So I haven't heard that we were unable to get it, or one of the parties was unable to get it, but either was a challenge. I think that there's been just some issues with the title companies in general. Maybe just what you referred to, just unable to absorb the amount of work that's coming their way.
okay. Any other comments regarding committee reports?
You're on item 11, not 12 yet, or
Item 11, committee reports. So let me just, while Director Giardini is doing a little research. The Finance Committee did meet. We don't have the minutes of the meeting published just yet. But you'll also see that under our tentative agenda items, we will be presenting to the board on June 6th, some auditors and recommendations there. So that will be included. What else do we have from that? We've got the budget. I think that's really it.
On a travel policy, there
The travel
are
policy.
safety issues pretty minor.
Yeah. So those should come before the board at that June 6th meeting. Activity reports, there's an engineering report from staff, a finance report, fire and emergency services, park, recreation and solid waste, and utilities. Any comments or questions from the board on any of those reports?
So I had a question from Melissa's report from Park and Recs. Whatever's park improvement plans, we didn't need a land use permit, we just needed a construction permit,
Grading permit.
just a grading.
Yeah, I don't think there's no sort of discretionary permit that was holding us up in terms of the plan review is just for kind of technical.
With ADA
ADA.
clients and stuff. Okay, that was it.
I believe it's being processed as a grading permit. That allowed them to have it reviewed by Public Works and they all issues. We had a request for clarification from our parks planner about one kind of specific ADA element that we've put back into the county's hands before resubmitting, and we have not got a clarification from that yet.
Okay, so we're waiting for that before we resubmit. I think I did.
But otherwise, the plans are ready to go. If the clarification matches what we've prepared, it can go back in.
Any other questions, comments regarding staff reports?
it wasn't in the report, but for Parks and Rec, the registration site is down for soccer. What is the reason? Is it back up? There's a message on there that it's down and that you need to go in person.
Really? I don't
I
know.
don't know
the
if
answer
that's
to that.
changed in the last couple days, but.
Well, as of today, it was, we had 100 people registered. as of-
Okay, so it must be up back.
I'm sure pull it up
Haven't
right now.
checked since,
Let's
but
just check. We changed vendors for the online registration for soccer. Cal, who we play soccer, our kids play soccer through Cal South. It's integrated with the area of Morro Bay and others, and the Cal South, soccer registration is now open.
I
I'm gonna make sure it
haven't
works.
checked in a couple days, so.
But while we're here, because Melissa just said this, it wasn't even this morning, this afternoon, that we had about 100 kids registered.
Okay.
So I think we're okay, but let me keep going and I'll.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay, any comments or, oh, go ahead.
Are you still on 12 or?
Still on number 12, staff reports. Okay. Any comments or questions from members of the public regarding any of the staff reports? Okay. Hearing none. Let's move now to directors' reports. Any meetings that directors attended on behalf of the district?
Yes.
Go
So,
ahead, Dr. Donish.
I attended two meetings. The first one was on April 25th. It was at Paso Robles Emergency Operations Center. It was a meeting from 8:30 to 2:30. It was actually pretty educational. The Paso Robles City Council was there, as well as Arroyo Grande, a couple of council members from there was there, and then I was there as well as the fire chief from Paso Robles. And they basically went over Frank Meacham. At the time, he was when there was an earthquake, he was the mayor, and also he was a supervisor later on. So he was there via Zoom, and he went over what happened that day and what they did, and the weeks afterwards. So that one, was very interesting to learn from. And then the presenter, he was actually in charge of when the disaster happened at Santa Barbara with the fire and then subsequent mudslide. So he went over what his role was, what happened there. He actually was the former Cal Fire chief in San Luis Obispo, so he was very familiar with Templeton too. So he was asking me questions about different things about Templeton. So, but it's amazing, how in terms of what we need to do, where are you going to set up a command center, who's going to be in charge, how are you going to deal with the media. And, this seminar that I went to was for elected officials, but they also had one for all the other staff members as well, in terms of the finances of it, the operations of it, the logistics, because each section had, somebody has to lead it. So, for us, the county will take over if there's an emergency. I guess, Jeff, you would declare
We would request, we would request that the county open up the EOC, and we could open up a departmental EOC.
Yeah, and then it was interesting, like they were talking about, we shouldn't set up a command center at our board room, because we want to be able to have our regular meetings and project that that everything is under control. So if we have that operations center in our boardroom, then we're not going to be able to have meeting, and it's that the government, it's going to be disruption to that. But so it was really good. I was glad that I went. And then this morning, I along with Jeff Wells, we attended the IWMA meeting there. Before I was proponent of trying to get rid of IWMA, but it was pretty eye-opening today. It was very interesting. First of all, I was very pleased that they had invited all the special districts along with the cities, and there were all the haulers, all the people from the landfills, everyone, and each one came and presented, and they explained their role. They talked about what's happening with 1383 and AB 1383, and what we should expect. I just took some, like for IWMA right now, what they're doing is some of the requirements that they need to make sure they look through is one is education and outreach. They look for waivers and exemptions to 1383. Also, they're doing contamination monitoring right now. So for residential route reviews, commercial route reviews, and if there's any complaints or investigations, the IWNA is looking into that. They're reaching out to self-haulers. The biggest thing that they're having problems with, and they're learning because it's not, what they used to doing is the edible food recovery outreach and inspection. That's where different grocery stores and things like that, where they have to be able to, try to donate their food, and they all have certain goals to meet. And right now, from what they're presenting today was they're saying that they're reaching all their goals. So San Luis Obispo was actually doing really well among all the counties in California. We're right on top. And then, so they have recovered organic waste procurement program as well as paper. So they're doing a lot of work.
And their focus is still going to be just implementing state regulations
Yeah.
and not, oh, somebody wants to do some environmental goodie,
you know
good
what?
thing that's gonna cost us all.
That was the impression I was getting all
Yeah.
along, but right at the end, Peter, who's the executive director, he threw a sentence in there and, which we'll just have to see, he said a little bit about, okay, we gotta look at the different social issues and things like that, so we'll see. But one thing important that, and then for example, for the contamination monitoring, this year, just this year in 23, they have looked at 1,266 residential accounts. So they've gone to
And looked in your garbage.
they
yes.
looked into their garbage.
I'm composting.
Yeah, and then they've done 238 commercial, and then they've done 177 inspection of multifamily dwellings. So it is happening, and what they're trying to do, they're gonna go all over the county and do that, and then they're gonna go back to the areas that were not complying as well. So just because each time they see problems, they're leaving a note. And then the other thing that was very interesting, that we learned about, they're working with a company called Science Discovery. Science Discovery is going to different schools around the county and teaching the kids about composting, about the recycling. They have a whole bunch of programs that they have. And they also, they suggested that they work with service clubs, the different organizations if they want. And all we have to do is contact them. And actually Jeff asked Pete, the executive director, how to do that. And he goes, yeah, just either give them a call or give them a call. And they're going to do this for free. So they will go to different, and I thought, I don't know, if it's going to be possible, but farmers market, I think on Saturdays, I think there are people that are really interested to learn about what's going on. So that we could, I know education has always been important for us. So I think this would be a way of trying to increase that.
So this year is still just the education with January 1, 2024 is when it's now going to be implemented, where
Well,
everyone is expected to
sure. But-
compost.
Now, one thing is though that raised some red flags for me is that the vendors, the people that were there, they technology wise, they're pretty advanced. I mean, they have robots now separating all the different items and things like that. So they're spending a lot of money. I mean, it's very expensive. So MedStay solid waste is not there. So we have to be, I don't know what's the, because I mean, if they're going towards that, I mean, they have robots, AI, trying, figuring, going in and picking all, separating everything. So right now, we're not doing that. So how it's gonna move forward is gonna be interesting. And we do have a 10-year rolling, agreement with MedState. So I think that we have to keep a close eye on that and see, because I was very surprised technology wise, how advanced some of these companies were. I mean, just, like Cold Canyon, that's how they do it. Yeah, so, but it was nice.
On Midstate, it's interesting because I have an old TV and some stereo equipment that Staples won't take. And Midstate, I called them and they said, take it out to the Chicago landfill. In Paso, they actually have a recycling center, but you have to be electronics recycling center. You have to be one of their customers to be able to put it there. And so I've been looking all over the county for electronics recycling. So Midstate is behind, because like the last thing I want to do is dump an old, like it's, my parents had it and got this huge TV and they're behind on that kind, because Staples will take your laptops and computers, but they won't take a TV.
Well, and the dump, I think, only has Saturdays where they
Limited
will
hours.
take, limited hours when they'll take the electronics. So it's not 24/7, it's not the entire time they're open. So
And yeah, but what do they do with them is my question. Do they?
I don't know what they.
No, actually, IWMA pays to have those hauled off separate from the facility. There's a,
So
it's
there's
just
not-
located there. It's not gonna go.
It's
out.
just a
Okay.
collection site.
Yeah.
So it's just, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it's Saturdays, but
Another thing about recycling, that they said that they're gonna start having some problems with their solar panels. They
Okay.
don't know what
What
they
good
need to
things
do with it, as people are upgrading and getting
Right.
newer solar panels, or the other ones are failing. That they're trying to set up programs to for solar panel recycling too. So
Interesting.
that's gonna be coming up.
Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Any questions from public?
I have a question back onto manager's report. Can I go back to that?
Sure.
Jeff, in your review, you said to us, you thanked, I think it was, Panetta for helping us write a grant for the fire engine. And so I was just wondering, I've asked several times to have a meeting to brainstorm on the fire department fund as a group, so we can figure out what to do or get some ideas going. Because even if we get a grant for a new fire engine, we still don't have the asset replacement fund able to do that on a yearly basis. And so it's still, I'd like to buy a new engine. I'd like to bring it to our fire department, but we need to have the asset replacement fund brought up so we can afford it every year. And so I kind of was, I was happy we're applying for a grant, but we're still stuck in the hole.
Yeah,
of
it doesn't-
what to do.
it doesn't, so regarding Panetta's office, it's really kind of a more interesting item than that. We were invited to make a community projects request through Panetta's office. We've been invited to through Carvajal's office the past couple of years. And we've submitted for a type 1 fire engine each of the last couple of years. This year, with really no luck, we didn't rise to what was submitted to Congress through Carvajal's office. This year, Panetta's office reached out and then made direct contact and said, the congressman would really like to do something in Templeton. So it's really short turnaround, like a few days. And working with their office, we were able to pinpoint some potential funding opportunity. We originally submitted 3 projects. They said just take it back to 1. So we submitted for the fire engine, and they have advanced it through the congressman's request. So it's part of the congressman's request. There are 5 items that he's requesting. And from what I can gather, under normal years, we would have a very good shot, of getting this funding. I talked to his legislative director last week in Washington, DC, and after I ran into his district person, Susie, don't know her last name, and just asked, hey, what do you think the odds are we're going to get this funding? I'm, feel really appreciative that we've got this far, but what are the odds? He mentioned that the debt ceiling issue is a game changer potentially for community projects or what used to be called earmarks or. So it's too soon to celebrate, don't cash a check that hasn't been written yet, but it's still much more optimistic than we've been the last few years for this funding source. Back to your question about the asset replacement. You're right, it doesn't matter whether the engine is paid for through capital facilities or through some other source potentially. We still have to plan on replacing it ultimately, 15 years later. And we can go through that in some detail on the budget workshop, because I think what you'll see is we've made a recommendation to include, for lack of a better word, the down payment on an engine for next fiscal year. Even though it will be very challenging to set aside the money to pay for it. But we're actually looking more optimistic now than I thought we'd be. We still, this budget coming out of the Admin and Finance Committee still hasn't allocated the CFD funds, and we're up to a little over $60,000 a year that's projected to come in. So that if there isn't another need for the CFD funds between now and when the engine arrives and we have to start setting it aside, would about cover the cost, the additional asset replacement costs, because we've made a policy change. You'll recall several months ago, maybe it was last fall, maybe November or so, that the large fire equipment is amortized over 15 years instead of 10, so it's about maybe $80,000 a year.
But the CFD funds go to Park and Recs and Fire.
They can go to wherever you'd like.
We haven't determined that. The board hasn't decided right now. It's just kept as a separate fund.
Right, but
And I think it'll be good to see the budget on January 6th, because I think you'll be able to see clearly kind of where we at with revenue coming in to each of the departments and the expenditures. And I think at some point, we will need to make a determination on those CFD funds, but it'll probably be a good time to see the budget first. But the down payment that's in the budget is included and the Finance Committee said, kind of questioned it a bit, but in reality, it's going to be 2 years before we actually take
so the
delivery.
Finance Committee went against the Fire Department recommendation or the Fire Committee recommendation, because our recommendation was we don't have the money.
Well, it's coming before the board, so the board will have an opportunity to approve it or not. So that'll be on June 6th.
I understand that the Finance Committee's recommendation is.
The
coming.
Finance Committee didn't make a recommendation. The Finance Committee was presented with the budget, which included it. And we did not remove it. So it's staff's recommendation at this point. That still needs to be presented to the board, and that'll be done on June 6th.
Okay.
So,
And will the Fire Committee's recommendation be brought up at that time too?
I think we can have that discussion at that time. Yeah, I mean, because you're raising legitimate concerns that I think we all share. So I think it would be good to see the budget. And then to your point is, do we need to then have some kind of brainstorming meeting to make that asset replacement fund more robust than what it is? And how do we go about doing that?
And so that night, on the 6th, will we be discussing the Community Facilities District funds?
Yes.
All the departments will be discussed, the budgets.
So the CFD funds that are not allocated yet would be discussed at that time as to how to allocate them.
Yes, the board could choose to allocate them or leave them in the.
The CFD funds, the wording in there is to go to Park and Recs and Fire Department.
Actually, there's just a very long, there's kind of a vaguer description about how the funds can be used, but it was constructed in a way that gave the district, the board, a lot of latitude about.
But we
where
couldn't
those-
put it over to the Water Department. I thought it was specifically for those two departments.
I think we left it vague so that there would not be any kind of restrictions on how those funds are used. I mean, certainly water doesn't need it. If you look at water and you look at sewer, they don't need it.
Right.
So I think we left it vague so that, if the board so chooses, they could allocate 100% to Park and Rec or 100% to fire or split it. So I think it was left vague for that reason.
Wasn't there some discussion at some point, a kind of a generalized percentage of allocation between the two departments? It was kind of my understanding that there was like
So not
77 something percent.
for the CFD.
Yeah,
So the only time that we've really tackled that is when the financial model was developed for the fire fund. That we used the same allocation, the same split as we do for property taxes, only for the purposes of showing the revenue in the model. There was no determination made by the
the
board.
strategic planning session was right there. I thought there was some kind of discussion of the intent of the board, not necessarily the actual, but kind of the collective intent of the board was to see allocations at a certain.
For property taxes, there's been a number of those kind of.
Oh, I thought it's property taxes, not the CFD. Okay.
Like, keep in mind, property taxes bringing in something like 1.5 million, and the CFD is bringing in like 60,000.
So this whole time that's just kind of been sitting.
Well, we just started it, we only got money
It's
about
a few years, yeah.
It's new, relatively.
That on our website, to be able to read the CFD documents.
Also, I'll find it and send it to you.
Okay.
You know, it would be the documents themselves, but it was clear, I think you're correct, the intent was a revenue source for Parks and Recreation and for fire as being the two needed services. But the documents themselves have a lot of additional.
And because part of my remembrance was I really wanted Measure A to have some Park and Recs in it, and that was not voted unanimously, so it ended up being just for the fire department. And that the CFD was going to be part of the saver for Park and Recs. Now, when we joined the waste with Park and Recs, that helped out a lot. And even though we had a few community members question that, the legal counsel said it was okay. But I'm still of the concern that the CFD fund may not be entirely for the fire department, and, you know, because we do have other buildings associated with rec that are in disrepair and need help. And so, but I guess this is discussion.
Yeah, we haven't, the board has not made a determination on how to use the CFD funds.
Well, my question is, are we gonna make a determination that night because of that?
I think we will review it. It is part of the budget. But I don't know that there's, staff is making a recommendation at this point, at least they did at the finance
We
committee.
actually didn't suggest allocating it because all of the funds. Well, let me say, not all the funds, but Parks and Recreation and Fire are both more than balanced. Based on the numbers we're working with today.
So I
Whatever
think-
the allocation determination, that would just apply for the next.
It could be
Budget,
changed
so
anytime.
every
It's
year.
not intended, it's not a.
Okay. So we're not looking at policy, we're just looking at the budget allocation.
Yeah. So I think you'll see on June 6th, when we review the budget, you'll see what the funds look like. And I think you may feel a little more comfortable than where at this point.
Well, I guess where I'm standing from as an elected official, if am I gonna have to make a decision that night on, yes, we're gonna take these CFD funds and put them specifically in one spot, or allocate X amount to one spot? Because,
That's not a recommendation of the finance committee at this point.
so we're keeping the CFD funds solely as CFD funds and not doing anything with them right now is the recommendation of the
For the
finance.
finance committee did not make a recommendation to allocate that to any department. So you'll see that in the budget on June 6th, and you'll see what the fund looks like
Okay.
at that time.
And then we have a projection of what that CFD fund is bringing in every year too, correct?
In the near term, yeah, it's gonna go up next year. We anticipate it going up pretty, more than doubling next year because we've
Because
got.
of the people's.
Any other questions for the general manager before we adjourn? Yes,
Actually,
Director Fagonish?
I'm sorry, I just want to go back to the meeting that we were at today. About the IWMA, just real quick, as you guys recall, county left IWMA because of some issues.
No, the city, didn't the city,
No, county, yes,
okay.
and that's why we have problems. And but today, they told us that the county has contacted the IWMA board and they want to join.
Rejoin again.
Yeah,
And
it's too expensive for them to go.
The IWMA, well, it was all political, and so IWMA now is reviewing their request.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Okay, thank you for that. All right, any other last minute comments? And if not, we'll adjourn the meeting at my watch is working 8:10 and 12. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.